Whenever we draped up,
Elliot Sharif,
you never gon' phase
my
us.
girls ride.
We still get this paper.
My girls ride.
You mad so you hate us. Every city my girls we rock. Every city my girls we rock. We rock. Every city my girls we rock. Every city my girls we rock. We rock. Every city my girls 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 we rock. I ain't no Taliban, just counting bands. My girls rock. Tell a friend. Think we oppressed, try to hold our hands. Black hijab, no contraband. You the Walking Dead, I'm the Mockingjay. Gon' catch it by ya, Hunger Games. All black attire, I be MIA. You be tryna bite in a semi-late. You wish you could get with my style. Wish you could copy my files. Wish you weren't so indie now. Wish you could handle these trials. Wish you could run all these miles. Covered in tribal, talking that trash, you don't get the bag though. Still looking flat like my rare map post. A giant on my back like T-FIFO. Ready? Go. I got my crown on.
Check.
My fly on.
Check.
I'm serving these fools.
Check.
I'm making these moves.
Check.
They running all wild. They're biting my style. My girls rock. They know we hot. They know we hot. Every city my girls we rock. Every city my girls we rock. We rock. Every city my girls we rock. Every city my girls we rock. We rock. Every city my girls 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 we rock. We rock. Snatched in my crown piece. Afro underneath like who is she? Aisha Gray with the pack of the recipe. They be scheming, they be blowing why they mad at me. Flat fees, your talk is real cheap. Catch me on the block like a real G. Shiesty, yeah, I know you don't like me. Likely that you turn around and bite me. So I gotta check you like Nike. You wish you could get with my psyche. Wish you could dress up just like me. Wish you could get with the flyers. Stereotyping. Wish you were covered in vibrance. Nope. I be on a higher note. You be on a tired hope. I be on a grind named dope. Muslima on the rise, you know. Ready? Uncover the drape. You never gon' phase us. We still get this paper. You mad cause we made it. You phony, you basic. My girls never chased it. We stay at that bank quick. You mad cause we made it. Oakland, Sacktown, Bay Area, back down. Detroit, NYC, Compton, Long Beach, overseas, Rolling D, Miami, every city, Kingston, ATL, Chi-Town, Jersey girls. Right.
Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace and blessings be upon you. Welcome to New Africa Talks, the She Speaks Volumes Primetime Edition. Yes, you heard me correctly. Tonight is a collaboration between New Africa Talks and She Speaks Volumes. I want to thank everyone for joining me live on Facebook or YouTube, whichever platform you're joining me from. Thank you so much for the support. Tonight's show is actually streaming on New Freedom Exchange's Facebook and YouTube page, as well as the New Africa Intelligentsia's Facebook and YouTube pages. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also, let me know where you're checking in from in the comment section. I want to make sure that I shout you all out, as many of you as I can get in. I love to know where you all are checking in from. I'm your host, Sister Marcia, and tonight's discussion is entitled Woman, the Womb of Mind, the Re-Education of the African American Woman. Yes, y'all, that's heavy. I'm gonna have to get that to y'all twice because that one is for real. But we gonna do it tonight. Y'all gonna ride on this roller coaster with us, and we gonna get it in. Again, the title is Woman, the Womb of Mind, the Re-Education of the African American Woman. But before we jump into it, I just want to shout you all out. We have Sister Najla from Orange, New Jersey, checking in with us. Assalamu alaikum. My sister, Shay. Assalamu alaikum, sister. I also see a few other of my sisters. Okay, Sister Angie, and from Newark, she's repping the Unified E-Committee. She's actually our chairperson in Newark for the Unified E-Committee. So shout out to Sister Angie. Hassana Shore, also another one of my sisters. Thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight as we prepare for this very interesting discussion and very necessary discussion. Also, I want to thank the Sabri brothers for inviting me to host tonight's show in honor of Women's History Month. As you all may know, March is dedicated as Women's History Month here in the United States as well as abroad. And this is where we take time out to recognize accomplishments of women all over the world, and the significance that women play throughout history and even present day. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. Tonight's guest is Sister Sajda Sabri. She is going to be joining me in this discussion as we take the journey through Woman, the Womb of Mind, the Re-Education of the African American Woman. So without further ado, I want to introduce her to you all, and then I'll bring her into the show. Sajda Sabri is a student of Imam W.D. Muhammad. She's a Muslim mother. She's a lifelong educator. She's a first-time novelist and an amateur singer. Now, I don't know if you all heard the sister sang before. We actually interviewed her on New Freedom Exchange before, and she sang a little bit for us. I know that this paper says that she's amateur, but the sis can sing. She sounds really good. I love her voice. She's also an advocate for the Black family and a champion for the restoration of the heteronormative nuclear family. And I want to ask her a few questions about that because that's not something you hear every day. And so I want to be able to have that conversation with her as well. I just want to repeat that. She's an advocate for the Black family and a champion for the restoration of the heteronormative nuclear family. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring Sister Sajda on. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sajda. How are you? You look so beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that khimar and that top. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you? I feel a little bit under the weather. Because this weather's not doing good. I'm having like a slight asthma thing, but I'm good.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, I'm doing well over here. You know, today was a beautiful day. Had some sunshine out. I didn't get to be out too much today, but just to see a little sunshine is always restorative to the spirit. Even though I was hearing that we're going to be like back in the 40s sometime during the week. I don't know. We're like back and forth, but that's probably why you're suffering, because it's like the weather's warm and then it's hot. I mean, then it's cold. Yeah. So I'm glad.
I appreciate today's weather. It was nice. It was warm. It felt like spring finally.
Yes.
But we just roll with it. Whatever we have to do, just do it.
Absolutely. So I'm like excited to have this conversation with you. It's not every day that we talk about women, and then we talk about our contributions, but we also talk about in the title it says the re-education of the African American woman. So when we talk about re-education, sometimes some of us get a little tight about that, like, well, what's wrong with us right now? You know what I mean? And so for us to be able to have the conversation and really dive into where we are as women, what is the expectation? Where are we in reference to where we should be? That's not something we discuss every day, but I feel like it's important for us to have the conversation and really be real with ourselves as to where we are and where we're going.
Right.
And one of the things that I was thinking about as I was preparing for the show is, March is obviously Women's History Month. And what I do, so I'm part of the education team that helps to assign the students for the Klein Muhammad School here in Newark. And my daughter's one of those students. And one of the things that I do for the journals is that for the month of March, I've been giving the journal lessons or giving the journal for them to write stories about whatever the topic was. And so everything was around Women's History Month. And there was a lot in there about feminism, right? And I was like, oh, like why, because and the journals were for young writers. So I was like, well, why are they like pushing this whole thing for the young writers? And I was very hesitant sometimes to give certain of the journal topics because they were so like specific and heavy to feminism. But I wanted us to start the conversation and talking about women, femininity versus feminism. What's the difference? Where do we stand? Not just as African American Muslims, but also as African American Muslim women. So, with that said, I guess, as when we're talking about women, the womb of mind, the re-education of African American women, give us your perspective on us as women, where we are and where we should be. Why do we need to be re-educated?
Okay, assalamu alaikum once again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I just wanted to say, you starting off on hitting on the first point that I had almost later on. But I did want to say that if you have children watching, this is going to be a big girl talk. So anybody under the age of 16, this is not for you, because 16 you can get married. So you need to have knowledge of things. But if you still feel your child is kind of sensitive or you haven't discussed certain things with them, they shouldn't be on this blog. So with that, feminine is basically the essence of women. And it is what Allah put in us. Let me start by saying, and all that I'm saying, I'm getting it from Quran and my upbringing as a Muslim. And as a Muslim, that's the number one thing we have to do as Muslim women. We have to start and end with the words of Allah, period. If we don't, then we run the risk of being like what's going on out here in the world, what I see from different people. And I'm not, like I said, disclaimer, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not speaking names or whatever. If it hits you, then it's just Allah giving you a reminder. That's how we should think of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Femininity is basically what Allah gave us naturally in the womb. We're born from an egg and a sperm. We come together, and the the gene that the XY is the woman, and the other is the male, and we have to fall in line with that. Allah gives us the way it is. Now, for myself, like I said, there's different kinds of girls. We all grow up differently. I'm one of 7. I'm a tomboy. I wasn't trying to be nothing, no kind of feminine anything when I was little, because I was playing with the boys. And I just thought everything they did was great. Especially if my 2 older brothers were doing it, I just felt like they wouldn't harm me, so it's safe, and I did the craziest things. And looking back, I always say to myself, it's amazing that there are any men in the world, because the stuff that they think to do is like, what? But me being in the middle and just having so much fun, I just did whatever they did. My brothers would say, my brother Hakeem and I are close in age, and he would say, let's have a burnt toast eating contest. So he sat there and burned like 15 pieces of toast, and we're eating it, and I'm getting sick to my stomach, but I just said, he didn't give up, I'm going to keep going. I got so sick. I was throwing up. He was like, I won. I ate 12 pieces. I was like, oh my God, I only ate 3. I can't do it. And then another time, we were standing on our parents' bed, and he said, let's have a stomach punching contest. I said, sure. So he said, punch me in the stomach, and I'll punch you. I punched him in the stomach, and then after he punched me, all thing I remember is him standing over me going, back they used to call me Saya. Saya, are you all right? Are you all right? Like trying to wake me up because I was knocked out. I was like, I don't feel so good. So I was just a tomboy. But I also love my dolls. And I love tea parties and stuff like that. I was just in the mix. I outgrew it. Most girls outgrew it. I wanted to be a boy when I was 6, but I outgrew it. Most children, they say, who have that, I didn't even have dysmorphia. I just wanted to do that because they seemed like they were always having more fun, and girls were always being corrected. I didn't want to be corrected. I wanted to be able to do they did. I didn't want to take a bath. I didn't want to comb my hair. I just wanted, whatever they got to do, I wanted to do it. And my mom was the complete opposite of me. She was a very feminine type of a woman. And so she would always say, why don't you keep your hair this way? And why is your hair so dirty? And why don't you do this and that? And I used to be so mad, like, you don't say that to them.
Right.
So that's just the way it was. But as I grew up and got older, you know, the feminine part came. I like makeup and I wanted to wear this and that and certain things like that. I still had my edge about me, but that's just who I was. My sister was the opposite. She was always very girly, very feminine, and things like that. The feminine is what's natural to women. It's not something we have to think about. It's not something we have to be taught, except the prim and proper part of it. But the rest of it is just what we are and who we are and what we're taught by Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And feminism is the Caucasian woman's fight against her man for abusing her as long as he has. And I'm all for it. I agree that they needed to fight them men. They wouldn't let them have property. You couldn't inherit. You couldn't live a certain place. You couldn't have money. You couldn't do certain things. I don't care how wealthy you were. One of my favorite TV shows, Downton Abbey, and throughout the whole series, they're looking for an heir for his estate because he never had a son. Now he has 3 daughters who are capable, but they get passed over. So that made sense for them to say, you know what, this is ridiculous. I can't vote. I can't have this. I can't. So let me fight. The problem with feminism is when it got too far. And when it became solely about whatever the men do, I want to do it. Like it was when me being a little kid. That is when they turned the entire movement around and made it childlike, in my opinion. So it's like you see 2 men on the street punching each other in the face with a rock. We should punch each other in the face with a rock. Although it makes no sense for women to do that, it doesn't help us at all. And so feminism, it started with the suffragette movement. And I read a lot about that during undergrad, wrote a paper about it. And they mentioned different women, from my generation and back. But they never talk about, a lot of the suffragists were racist. Susan Anthony, because Ida B. Wells, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth were also proponents of the suffragist movement to get rights for women and take them from being second-class citizens. But they never get credit to them. It's always just them. Like they just started this out of the clear blue sky, and we didn't help at all. But when we would ask the suffragists, help us with the anti-lynching campaign, silent. So that's where they went wrong and started to make a wrong turn. And then they started changing, like I said, fashion. They wanted to wear pants, which is no big deal because they have pants. But it wasn't because they wanted to have pants for comfort or useful things like you're working or whatever. They just wanted pants because men had pants. And this is what made the movement become ridiculous, in my opinion. The other problem is that there's so many Muslim women now who call themselves feminists, not understanding where that comes from and what it's about. It's not about Black women. It's not about anybody but white women fighting their own men for the rights. Now, like I said, some of the things make sense. Equal pay. If I'm doing the same job you're doing, pay me the same amount of money. I should be able to own things. I should be able, rights that Muslim women already had. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah sent him that message for us, and we were able to own. So what are you fighting for? And my whole concern with Muslim women saying that they're feminists is that makes it seem like Allah left something out. He gave us all the rights that we need. I don't need to be and you cannot hyphenate Islam. I don't need to be a feminist Muslim. That's like saying, you know, any other thing to add to Islam is wrong. Allah gave us all that we need. We don't need to join anybody else's thing. And I heard some people say, well, the Prophet was a feminist. Astaghfirullah, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
He was a man that Allah sent with the message. He's not a feminist, if you really understand all that the feminist things entail. And nowadays, it's moved from what made a little sense to absolutely no sense. I was listening to this feminist woman. She's very famous. I'm not going to mention her name. And she was talking about being now it's okay to be feminine too. What?
Right.
So you took off the part with the women and now you forgot you got to put it back. See, that's what human beings do. Allah is a supreme being. He's not a moron. He knew how men were going to treat women. He created these men. He created the women. We have to understand that as Muslims, Allah didn't make any mistakes. This is not something he just, oh man, by the way, you can have rights now.
Right.
Like that's what we're treating it as. And that's my problem with it. And people will say, oh, you're a feminist. Don't you believe in women's rights? We already had women's rights in Islam before you even heard of them. When you were out here being sold, Mrs. actually meant property of, you couldn't inherit anything. Most women had the right already. So what are you giving me? You're not bringing me anything new. All that it's supposed to be was already there by Allah. So we need to understand that. And the newest feminism, most of them make no sense because I'm listening to different podcasts and things. And there was one where the lady was talking about the gray area of sex between men and women. And there were women and up there talking about they were having sex with men. They didn't really want to do it, but they didn't feel like they could say no at that point because they were already in the act of whatever. And one girl was like, well, you know, it's a guy we just met, you know, we're kind of messing around outside. Then we went inside my apartment and then, you know, we wound up having sex, but I didn't really want sex. And I feel like that's his fault because he should have known I didn't want it. And I was like, hold up. You don't know him. How's he supposed to know what you want? Right. Now, I don't condone rape any way, form, or fashion at all. Anybody that knows me knows rape, you should be castrated or you should be hung. I mean, hanged. That's just it, because there's no excuse for doing that. But women have a responsibility. And either we're going to behave like women or little girls. Either you are as capable as a man of making decisions. You made a decision. I did. Okay, let's stick with this.
Right.
But they're saying, oh, even if you're in the bed and you're naked and you're twerking for him, he has no right to have sex with you if you don't want to have sex. What are you doing twerking naked in the bed if that's not what you want to do? That's child behavior, childlike behavior.
Absolutely.
And I said, yes. And so one lady was saying, well, you know, our girls don't know that when they go home with a man, because she was saying that her husband said, yo, you show up at my hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning. What else are we doing? And she was like, no, that's not the way women think. And I agree with her 100%. We do need to teach the girls better than that. We need to teach them, do not go anywhere. Especially if you don't know this man, you're not a man. The average woman cannot beat the average man, period. So if he wants to take it from you at that moment, you're helpless.
Right.
All you can do is scream. But if he wants it, he's going to take it. So teach, like I teach my daughter. I don't condone rape. Nobody has a right to rape you. If anybody ever does rape you, they're going to pay for it. I'm going to pursue it to the end of the time, the end of life, whatever, because he's wrong. But you have a responsibility, if you say you're a woman, to think. And we don't have the same sex urge as a man. We do not. We can be in the motion and then feel like, you know what, I don't want to do this no more. Men, it's like, what? Right. It's like excusing men from having poor behavior, but they don't have the same makeup that we do. Mm-hmm. Understand that. So we need to understand that the feminine also needs to be protected. But part of protecting yourself is to avoid a lot. Look at nature. All the animals that are not strong and ferocious, Allah gives them what? Instinct. You see the gazelle. They just pause, be like, hold up. Some don't smell right here. So there's some lions around here. Let's get out of here. We can run, and we can see. Women have excellent peripheral vision. We can tell somebody's looking at us. We don't have to look around. A man, if he sees a woman, he got to turn all the way around.
Yes.
Back. All we got to do, my girlfriend and I used to walk down the street, be like, to the left, guy with the green shirt.
Right.
Never know anything. Just keep it moving. We don't react, and that alone should teach you something. And I say it's not like then that's trying to say, oh, you're slut shaming. If you're a slut, you should be ashamed.
Talk about it.
Shaming anyway. And then they try to say, well, shame is a bad thing. No, it's not. Shame is what Allah gives us to keep us in check.
Yes.
And it's not to say, oh, I've never done anything wrong. No, but I'm ashamed of it.
Right.
So that makes me stop and say, who do I want to be? And see, the older you get, maybe when you're young, you don't understand this, but the older you get, the older I get, the less I think about people, the more I think about my last day here. Do I want to go to Jannah? Do I want to meet so-called Allah and have to explain all this sin I did?
Right.
I don't have to explain anything, so I avoid it. And yes, it's easier for some women than the other. There are women that are stunning, gorgeous. They walk in the room, it's almost like they're being clawed to death. They can't help. They're just so beautiful, and they get a lot of attention. It's harder for them to avoid certain things than it is for other women or regular women. It is, but you still have to think, and that is and that becomes their so-called cross to bear. Some people's thing is food. Some people's thing is drugs. Some people's thing is alcohol. Yours is your looks, because your looks can be intoxicating. When you're a stunning woman, you can cause men to just fall down.
Right.
They'll do things for you. Now, a natural man will do for a natural woman anyway, just because that's who they are. But you have to understand that. And if you're raising a little girl, especially a pretty little girl that gets a lot of attention, you have to teach her early, and you have to set an example. One of the things that my mother always did, she set the example. If she wasn't doing it, you weren't doing it either. She always covered herself. She would always tell us, go down to the so-and-so store and get me a pin. If there's the least bit of skin showing, she was going to cover that up. Right. Now, I'm not as much covered as my mom. However, I still understand modesty. I understand how important that is. And especially with a daughter looking at you all the time, you have to show her, okay, mommy doesn't do that. Then that means it's wrong. Because in the beginning, you are Allah to your child. Right. They don't know Allah except through you. So whatever you do, they're going to do it. And we have to set an example. You cannot ask for something and not be willing to do the sacrifice. Part of the sacrifice is that we would all like to, wear shorter sleeves or sometimes put on some shorts, but I want paradise more. Right. And I realize, like I used to say, if it's the day of judgment, you can't pull me out of hell. You can't get me into heaven. So that's as far as your importance to me is. It's not that important, but it is important that we understand that the feminine is the natural, the softness, the mercy, the kindness. Women are more kind. We're softer. We don't fight as well as a man. You can tell by these ridiculous things going on with this transgender stuff, where they have a man named Fallon Fox, I believe his name is, who's a quote unquote female MMA fighter who's put women in comas. Oh, wow. He's just basically beating up women. It just taking a skill for a man to beat a woman. Oh, so he's a champ. Right. Bruce Jenner gets Caitlyn Jenner, you get a woman of the year for what? Right. Women should be insulted by that. But we're sitting here allowing this. Those two men running in track. Of course you can beat the women. You're a man. Right. So it's like the ridiculousness of this is coming from the change in the feminist movement, from just wanting equal rights and being treated well or decently to wanting to be, it's all based on men. If it's about women's movement, why is it all based on men? Yeah, and I never even thought about that. So that's interesting, right? Like if the real goal is to empower women, then why is the measuring stick a man? Exactly. Who is he? We don't take the time to say, you know what? That's why I said for Muslims, we have the cure to this. Allah said this. This is it. And even in the women's description of what we are, he doesn't hold us as tightly as the men are held. Men have to provide. They have to maintain. They have to protect. That's in the Quran. The women, it's not that specific. Because I believe that Allah put in us what we need to do. We didn't need to learn it. It's something that's innate. It's like one of the things I realized, my mother had 7 children. We would go to the doctor with her. She would know everything everybody ever had, who was sick, who was allergic to this, who's allergic to that, who's going over here, who's hit, who's that, this, straight. And I'm the same way. I take my daughter to the doctor. I run it off. I run off my family history. I run off who had this, who died from that. What Allah gave us that because we have to multitask. We don't have time to say, hold up. So you had the chicken pox. What was he doing? We don't have time.
Yeah.
We are multitaskers. Allah made it like that. He made our brain like that. We can do 6 things at one time and do it well. Mm-hmm. And we are the ones who pay attention to detail.
Right.
Man is a better CEO than COO. A woman is a better COO because we get down to the details. How you're going to do this, how you're going to do that. And if you see the men who have really good wives, that's what they know how to do.
Right.
You can walk in the room and tell them, honey, I don't trust that guy. Michelle Obama, everybody said this. She changed his whole staff, his security, because she said, I don't trust this person. I don't like him. Let's change this up. He didn't see it. Allah didn't give that to him. He gave it to her.
Right.
You know,
so there's so many things that you just discussed, right? That I want to unpack some of these things because there's a lot that you really just gave us, right? I was laughing in the beginning because you were talking about the whole being a tomboy, and I'm cracking up because I was like, I remember like I was a tomboy. I wanted to do anything that a boy was doing, so much so that there were these boys that lived next door to me, and we had this old broken radiator on the back porch, and they would run up to it again. Boys coming up with these crazy little schemes, right? Run up to it and kick it, but so it wasn't falling over; it was just shaking it. I ran up, kicked it, and it fell on my foot, and my mother had to take me to the hospital. So I was cracking up when you talked about the whole tomboy thing because I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was me." And I remember what you just said as well, like the whole wanting to be a boy, and it wasn't, you know, that I really wanted to be a boy. I just knew that the boys didn't have to do some of the same things we had to do. So I just wanted to be a boy. So I was cracking up when you talked about that. But I appreciate you giving us the distinction between being feminine and that whole feminist fight, because that was like one of the burning questions I wanted to be able to present to you, because I feel like people do get that intermingled, and then we have the statements like what you said, like now it's okay to be feminine. Well, wait a minute, you were always supposed to be that. Like, what do you mean now it's okay? But in the title of today's show, we talk about the re-education of the African American woman, and I want us to touch a little bit on that too. Because when you say re-education, automatically it comes to mind, well, okay, the education that I currently have isn't adequate, or is it the behaviors that I'm displaying based on the education that I may or may not have isn't adequate? And so talk to us a little bit about that, right? Like, well, why do we need to be re-educated? What's wrong? What are we seeing out there that's off?
The number one thing I see, and the reason that we need to be re-educated, is because we don't have families. And I know a lot of women don't like this, and this is another part of feminism that I do not like. First, you want to be in charge. You want to do this. You want to be, same as the men. Let me, square off and do. Then when it comes to somebody giving you responsibility, why do the women have to be the ones to do this? And why are the women always going to be blamed for that? And why are the women? I was reading this thing that somebody put up about birth control and how they're trying to give the responsibility to the men. They can make 100 babies a year if they want to, or even more, because they can have as many babies as they want at this time. A woman's, when she has a baby, she has to take care of it. Think of it this way. If you think of like in chronic terms, you have 9 months to carry, another almost a year to get over that baby. While you're doing that, you're nursing the baby. And you got it's all 3 years, literally, to birth and heal from a child. I don't have 3 years to throw away.
Right.
And so if you're looking at what's going on, it's like, first of all, I'm the one who has to deal with that. Men can't get pregnant. You know, contrary to crazy thoughts that's coming out now, anti-biological thoughts, men cannot have children. They never have to be burdened with a baby. They never have to nurse a baby. They never have to wean a baby. That's all on us. So you have the responsibility of that. Why would you give that to a man who can't even remember that? Most babies are oops babies. I don't know anybody who's born because their parents said, let's plan a child today. Everybody I know who was born is like, oh, here you are. And that's why everybody's birthdays are all over the place. It's like, I'm pregnant right now. Here, give it to you, and then you're pregnant. That's just the way it is if you're in a marriage. Not saying that that's bad, but I'm saying that's the way it is. That's what it is.
Right.
So, re-education, because the Black women have fallen prey to this foolish stuff that's going on now with the LGBTQ community and white women's lib.
Okay.
Together. One of the things I was talking to a friend about years ago is before all this LGBTQ even had a name, is that we're falling prey to that lifestyle. And not in the way that people think. I'm talking about being lesbians, because most women give up a man. Come on now. But the behavior. One thing I noticed, especially Caucasian men who are homosexual, there's a viciousness that they display. As far as outing each other, if somebody doesn't want to be out, they get upset. That's none of your business. If the person's ashamed of it, they try to force them. I thought you were about freedom and everybody has rights and only your freedom.
Right.
Your way.
Right.
And one of the things that I noticed that is when I started watching this show, America's Next Top Model.
Okay.
They were in the beginning, is the first season. They took all the girls to get bathing suit ready, and that means taking all the hair off of everything that, you're half naked when you put on a bathing suit. So taking all the hair from the female vagina. Mm-hmm. And in this episode, they take them to the place, the Brazilian wax, and instead of just, girls go in and they come out, they show it. Now, they block out the parts, but if you're an adult, you know what it is. And I just keep thinking to myself, why are they showing a Brazilian, any woman that's ever gotten one, I already know what's going on. Why are you showing this? Mm-hmm. But I've gone to the sense of most homosexual men want men. How do you get a man away from a woman if she's real and he's real? You get men who are on the surface, who are not really real. And men are not built for two things. Nursing somebody back to life, that kind of thing, that's really a woman's thing. Even though they're male nurses, women are better at it. Healing you with the touch and the talking. Men are not for that, and they're not for really like things that are like grotesque. That would be considered grotesque to them. When you show somebody a Brazilian wax, a man that likes a woman, he'll get grossed out by what? Why? Ugh. If you've even seen that, you've ever had one, you know what's going on here. It's not like very glamorous. Right. Now, afterward, it's all that. But while you're doing that, it's not glamorous. Your legs all up in the air, your behind all up in the air. Why would they show that? Why? To gross heterosexual men out. To make them think less of us. And to continue in that mind frame of women are nasty. They talk about our cycles. They'll say, what do they call women? Fishes. Fishes smell. So a natural man, I don't want to be around nothing that bleeds once a month and doesn't die, that kind of nonsense. Right. That's the influence. Then after a while, it started with the Caucasian men, and it went to the Black men. And they started saying all this so-called gangster rap. I just call it uncivilized music. This B, this thought, that, blah, blah, all of it. And then what you see? all the women come out, posters with your legs spread open. That's taking us back to slavery, in the sense where the white man paraded us around half naked, will go in our cabins, rape us in the middle of the day, like she's nothing.
Right.
She ain't nothing. And so that makes the men think, yeah, she ain't nothing but a whore. And they tried to make the word cute. Oh, no. This latest record that's out, but the latest record that's out that everybody's jumping up and down to, he says there's some whores in this house.
In this house.
He's using the correct word. He's not even trying to hide it. That's disgusting to a man who's civilized, who wants to have a decent family. I've never seen any kind of music like that with white women. And so what happens is we've begun to be conditioned that, hey, you know, I'm going to turn it up. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to get out here and be me. But then you're upset that the men don't like it and they're going off with somebody else. Why? Because they're not portraying themselves like that. A decent man wants a decent woman. And when it comes to the strength of women, our strength is not in our breasts and our behinds and our vaginas. Our strength is our moral strength. Think about your grandmother and your mama if you're old enough. Who held that family together? Who was the one that said, you're not bringing that in this house?
Right.
And what did the father do? I got to respect her. Why? She's a lady. I've never in my life been disrespected except by one white man sexually. In that sense, like out from mom. I was working in the library as a teenager and I had a supervisor and he would come in every single day, this white man, and say the filthiest things out of his mouth all day, just talking about his penis, just talking about this, just talking about. And after a while, all the women who are supposed to be my supervisors, they didn't say anything.
Wow.
So I got annoyed. So one day he came in, oh, how's it hanging? So I forgot who he was talking to. I hope it's low like mine. I said, you know what? I'm tired of you talking like that around me. I'm not your mother, your wife, your daughter, whoever else lets you speak to them like that. Don't speak to me like that. That is low down and it's disgusting. And he looked at me like, who's this little nigga gal talking to me like she's crazy or something? No, I'm a woman. I don't care if I'm 18, 18. Don't say that around me because I know what you're doing. You're trying to humiliate me and you're trying to make women feel low. Not here. I said, you act like you're 12 years old and you just found out that that 2-inch piece of crap works for you or makes you feel good when you touch it. What is wrong with you? Where were you raised? You tried to get me fired. But at that time, it was the beginning of sexual harassment. So he couldn't do anything. But he never said another word to me. Not like that.
Right.
And there was a respect that I had always garnered no matter where I go, whether I'm wearing my scarf or not. Never been disrespected like that, especially by Black men and Latino men. No problem. There used to be a time, I'm 50, I'll be 54 next month. But there used to be a time when there was something called polite company. And women would say certain things for the men and vice versa. And I would go someplace, and if they started cursing, the guy, whoever he was, the alpha male, would always stop, say, excuse me, sis, I'm sorry. And if his friend would continue, he'd be like, look, there's a lady here. You know, don't talk like that. There used to be that kind of respect in our community.
Right.
When we adopted the behavior of the outside community and those who were our open enemies, then we began to do the same thing. I can curse like a sailor. There ain't nothing to brag about.
Right.
My mother never said one curse word in her life. I don't care how angry she was, how irate she never spoke that kind of language. That's what I'm trying to live up to.
Right. And so I'm glad you made that point, though, because what you were just describing, even when you talked about the man in the library, right? What you were just as you were describing it, I wrote down the word standards, right? And then you told the story about your mom and not saying a curse word, and then you just brought out the point about there being like this communal standards about, you know, well, there's a woman in the midst. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so bringing us back to, you know, just women and Women's History Month and how we use that time to honor women, their accomplishments, and really to, I guess, hold up models of women, I want to talk a little bit about like, well, what should we be striving to be, right? Because we hold up so many different types of women as models, and then we look out our windows and out our doors, and we see all types of different women either fitting into that model or not fitting into that model. And I'd like to say, although it's not impressive to say, that sometimes we look out our windows and doors and we see a lot of women that aren't fitting into those models. And so it's kind of like, well, what should we be striving for as women? What is the model? You know,
the model
what's
is what Allah put before us. And he said modesty. We all have our different style. You can have a style, you can have whatever. Our grandparents were gorgeous. Those women were fly. They were modest. But it's not just modesty in your dress, because I've had the misfortune of teaching one year in Brooklyn and having so-called Muslimas with kimars down to their ankles, cursing each other out.
Right.
Smoking cigarettes. Standing on the block. Take that off. Don't disgrace the religion. Even if you're going to behave like that, don't disgrace the religion. Just go and do you. But what happened is, I believe those women were not trained correctly. Nobody told them the responsibility of dressing like that. Because they see you, it's not just you, it's Muslim women. And so we get so hooked up on the scarf. That's one thing I thank Allah for being raised. Mother never cared about the scarf. Be civilized. Don't go around doing different things. Don't behave like this. Don't behave. So the model of what we're supposed to be doing is what Allah tells us to do. We know what something is modest and is not. We all know, back in the day with teenagers, you want to wear them tight jeans. So you're trying to get a shirt that's almost past your butt and it's really not. We all did that. We know better. Allah gives us something called shame. But what this world is telling us to do is forget that. There's nothing to be, what's shame going to help? It helps you stay on the righteous path, just like prayer. Prayer, Allah says, keeps you from being savage and having bad behavior. You can't pray 5 times a day and still go out and swing on a pole. That's too difficult. So what Allah says to do, even in the Quran, it says, and in what I've asked you to do as much as you can. And you know when you're doing as much as you can. See, the problem is that we keep trying to pretend, is this enough? Is that? You know when you're doing, like you tell your child, go study. I'm trying to study. And you're not really studying. You're listening to something on your phone, and then you're trying to look at a piece of paper. You're not studying. You know, if this is, I tell my daughter too, if this is the best you can do, I'll accept it. Don't tell me it's the best. I know you can do better. So this is what Allah is telling us. Stay in this lane. And then understand the job, we used to say in the Nation of Islam, the duty of the civilized to teach the uncivilized. I used to go many a place and have women come up to me and say, you know what? I really admire you. I wish I had the strength to wear a long dress. I said, you do have the strength. I'm no better than you. You're no better than me. It's what we strive to do. The same way you can strive, and you see people whose bodies are magnificent because they put in that time at the gym. They eat certain types of foods only. Morality is a muscle. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. So keep practicing it. And like I said, women, we're not stupid little children. If you got some nice looking legs and you put on a mini skirt, you're going to catch attention. If you got the breast of death and the banging waist and the nice hips, that you're going to drag a man from one street to another. Don't act like you don't know what's going on. Just modify your clothing. Does your dress have to be this tight? Do you have to show everything in the front of your breast? Do you have to walk with a split so far up the back? Understand that we know what's going on. We know the difference between men and women. And the problem is that we have lied so much to these younger girls that we make them think being like that, Instagram is full of it. It's going to get you in. And even couples, unfortunately. There's one couple, she's an exercise guru. She's beautiful. Body, face, everything. But she and her husband on the thing, half naked.
Hmm.
So it's become okay. Parade your wife around. You're going to be half naked. You're going to be no. And like I said, I don't believe in saying all those clothes are terrible. I say, like I tell my daughter, it's inappropriate to wear
Right.
that in front of other men because what have they done to deserve to look at you?
Hmm.
And so, like you said, with standards, men will follow standards if they're real. But we have made it so till everybody is just so we're just okay with everything to wear the standards.
Right.
And nowadays, this is the craziest thing I've seen. There's a man, I'm not going to say where I see him on social media, who's trying to so-called teach women how to get men. And he's a
Oh.
homosexual.
Okay.
But his information on point.
Okay.
Why? Because he's a man. You know what other men like.
Right.
And it's sad that a man is doing what a woman's supposed to do. We
Hmm.
want to lead. That's what we should be doing. I was
Right.
on America's Next Top Model. Before the 1970s, women were taught to walk by women. After the late 70s, men teach these women how to walk. That's why they look so weird. You walk like young camels.
Hmm.
When women taught women how to walk, they would put the book on your head and walk like those beautiful African women in Africa. Upright, straight, beautiful, sway. Because women's hips have a rocking pelvis. Men don't have that.
Right.
So how are you going to teach me how to be a better me than I am?
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that you say that because you're bringing up some things that I think again, like I started off saying, like we don't necessarily have these kinds of conversations every day, although they're necessary. But it's just interesting some of the points you bring out and the differences in sort of what our measuring stick is, right? Like if we are striving to be the best of ourselves as women, then um, logically you would think that you're looking at a woman, whether your mom, your grandma, someone of a greater stature that is like you, right? A woman. We talked about that, like seeing someone like you, and that's not a man. And so but I kind of want to talk a little bit too about like our role as women. And you talked about it some earlier. We're wife, we're mother, we're the homemaker, and now, and I guess I'm going to put those sort of under the traditional category, right? Although they still exist, but now in today's society, we're more so like, we're employees now and we're business owners. And so we're carrying all of that, right? And for some people, they would say, like, well, that's a heavy load to carry. And on top of that, you want me to be feminine. And so I want to talk a little bit about that because it's sort of like I have all these things to do and you want me to be cute and prim and proper or whatever feminine is to you, right? I guess let's talk a little bit about that. Like, well, in light of that, what does feminine look like?
Well, I remember in the 90s, Imam Muhammad went around and did this whole tour around the country, men talk, women's talk. And I had gone to 2 of the women's talks. And one of the things he was talking about is certain employment that will masculinize you, period. You picking up stuff, picking it back up a garbage truck, you driving a bus, all this stuff. And I thought I was going to have to help the security because those women were so angry with him. They were cursing, some of them. What the F I'm supposed to do? This is how I make money to take care of my kids. So I'm supposed to drop my job and do this. He's saying to try to get out of that. No, I don't want to expect somebody, yesterday I'm doing this and the next day. That's not how it works.
Right.
Know those of us who are blessed to have and understand that your job is further along than someone else's. My job is more than somebody who doesn't know because you don't know. The number one thing I say for women to have to do is those who know you have to set an example. You cannot be out here like everybody else. If you know that Allah taught you, do not be involved with intoxicants. You're not supposed to be out here sleeping with men here and there. And then you turn around, same people. What's wrong with the kids? Why are these young people, the millennials? I can't say. No, you are supposed to be teaching the millennials. If you know, you're supposed to teach. That is your job. And what is the feminine to me? The feminine is what comes natural. One of the things that I learned from friends of mine who've been working for years like I have, the pandemic, they enjoyed what? I don't have to leave the house. I can be home. I can cook. I can do this. I meditate. I have the. That's feminine. Men have been stir crazy. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. I want to run here. I want to run there, because they go out. Women nest naturally, and that's one. Like I said, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm not trying to treat you badly or call you, but understand, femininity is an art. It is an art. The womb of a woman, and this is why when people do this transgender thing, I get insulted. You're not a woman. And I understand some of them have mental illness, so I let that, whatever. Right. But understand that there is something to a woman that you cannot create, that only Allah can create. Right. That the womb of a woman is so powerful, so deep. We carry our pain in there. We carry our future in there. We mold babies, human beings, to put out into the earth from that. We give comfort to men in that. We soothe the society with that. And once you become a mother, you're a mother to all children. You know, I was on a bus, this is years ago, and these little girls came on there, and there's this boy on there that they liked, and they all came making all this noise and loud and popping their fingers. And so I just went back and spoke to them, and I said, you don't have to do that. He saw you when you got on the bus. If he likes you, he'll find some way to approach you. I said, but what you're doing is making him dislike you because you're causing a scene. I said, you might not think you're pretty. He might not think you're pretty, but there's somebody out there who thinks you're gorgeous. Right. And you behaving like that is going to cause that person to turn away from you. Come on and be yourself. Your energy, the uniqueness of us as women. Like the poem by Maya Angelou. You know, I walk into a room and the fellows stand or fall down at their knees. That's talking about the majesty of what Allah created in a woman. See, in the rest of nature, the male is it. He has the mane and the peacock's tail and the big chest and the cock's crow. But in the human world, that's us. Right. We walk into a room and cause people. Now, some people, like I said, if a woman isn't sure of herself, if she doesn't believe in her majesty, if she doesn't know what she carries with her, then she'll come in there and berate another woman for being that great. Right. But a woman who's in tune will see that woman and say, you know, I want to be around her. What does she have? Right. Like that. That's the job of us, especially as Muslim African-American women, to be in these places of poverty, to be in these places of death, and to come out and show them, wow, you don't have to be like that. Yeah. You know, I can, that's the job. The feminine, like I said, when you come across, you're teaching or whatever you're doing, whatever you do, you put the touch on it. You come to a place, somebody could be acting a fool. I was outside waiting for a bus one day, and a woman had a little boy next to her, and she cursed him, just kept cursing. And I was standing next to her. It started to hurt my heart. So I said, sis, please don't talk to him like that. I know you're frustrated. None of us wants to go to work. It was cold. I said, but he's a baby. He doesn't understand. He just wants you to hold him. He's tired. He doesn't have the mental capacity to understand mama's tired. Right. Mama's angry. The man's not here who's supposed to help me, who made him. He doesn't understand that. Just hug him. And she just said, you know, sis, I'm so sorry. You know, I didn't mean to sound like that, but I said, I know. That's your job. Yeah. And you saying that just now, and you know, I mean, I was silent
all the time while you were speaking, but in this moment when you were speaking, like I had sort of like a silence, an internal silence, right? Because you started to, it felt like a reminder, right? You know, sometimes you need that reminder, or you just need to be readjusted. And so when you were just talking about that piece, the mother with the baby on the bus, and even when you just talked about that's our job to do that education for the young girls in our midst. It was like you were speaking to my spirit when you said it, because it was just like that was a readjustment even for me as a mom, right? Like I have all daughters. I have 3 girls. Mm-hmm. And so as you're talking about the way that you talk to the young lady on the bus, and not being in that space of desperation for somebody's attention because you feel like that's the only somebody that's ever going to give you attention. It was like, oh man, like that's on point, right? That's it. And if we had either 2 things, if we had someone in our midst giving that kind of education to us. So when we talk about sort of the re-education of the African American women, I guess that's it, right? For you to assume your responsibility as a woman who gives that out to younger women, but also for you to be open to receiving that education from someone else who has that. And I just want to bring up a comment from one of our viewers, Sister Angie. She says, when I became a Muslim, I was introduced to some powerful women, Sister Lizzie, Sister Noretta, Sister Bernstein, Sister Sophia, Sister Frederica, all practicing this religion to the best of their ability and being women. And I wanted to bring that up because we talked a little bit about March being Women's History Month and us holding up these models. And sometimes, the sister talks about the models that she had, in everything, they were being women. For our young girls who don't necessarily have that model to look at, I guess what's the solution for them, and especially if we're not assuming our roles, right? Because, and you talked about it being, you're not just a mother to your child, you're a mother to all children. And so we do have a lot of young girls out here who don't have that. So what happens with them?
We teach them in our behavior, in our dress, and all the time I encounter some girls who are off the chain because unfortunately there was a show that had come on, I believe it was on Oprah Channel, about fatherless daughters.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And one of the women in the thing said, I am a 3rd generation single mother. And I grew up in a household where I didn't have a grandfather. I didn't have any uncles. I didn't have anybody. So when I started dating and a man would leave, my boyfriends would leave, I always said, who cares? What are they here for? This is what our girls are and children, period, are in. That you don't even know what a man is for. And when I think of that, I think about my mother, her mother, the ancestors, the women who stayed with men who weren't always the best, but they did it so that we would at least know you're supposed to have a father. You're supposed to have a husband. It's not just supposed to be me and the kids.
Right.
So that's something that we can take from our elders. Like I said, all we do now is complain about them. Oh, she stayed with that man. He cheated her all his life. Oh, but you wouldn't have had a grandfather in his place if she didn't do this.
Right.
And even though those men, and think, like I said, in that time, our people were going through hell in a bucket. And they did the best that they could do with what they had.
Right.
And these women, like Sister Claire Muhammad, what she did for Honorable Elijah Muhammad, took him out of the street and cleaned him up and never said disparaging words about him to his children. Why? Because had she done that, she would have destroyed not only him, herself, but the kids. They would have said, well, that no good son, no respect for you, get out of here. Now, I understand, I'm talking about men who are abusive or men who harm children or those kinds of men, they don't deserve anything.
Right.
You just have to apologize to your children and say, I'm sorry that, he was a piece of garbage. But the men who are trying, and they had certain vices, our mothers are the ones who, if we understand womanhood, that's womanhood. That they were able to make men out of nothing. Because they weren't allowed to go to school. They weren't allowed to go certain places. They couldn't own this and that. Who made those men to build Black Wall Street? It was the women.
Right.
Who told them to even go after that? There was some one of my readings about Ida B. Wells, that she was so powerful with her words that she told them, 16, 17 years old, she's a young girl, but she was a woman. She said, get out of here. We don't have to take this. Now just think about this. This is Black history. When anywhere you went, a white man had the right to do whatever he wanted to do because you have no rights that he had to respect. And she had the audacity to say, by the law of God, you don't have to take this. Yeah. It made the men brave enough to go out and do stuff they would have never done. That's who we are. We don't understand what we have in our hands. We keep thinking, because the white woman says it's nothing, and the white man says it's nothing. Stop looking at them. Look at your own people. Because we kept families together when there was nothing. We fought in this country with our backs against the wall and no help. Nobody else did that. That's us. So when we start looking at the beauty and the majesty and the intellect and the strength of Black women, it's a sin for us to think otherwise. Because Allah put them here for no reason. He put them here for that reason. And as far as being feminine, I will never forget one of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Zakiya Muhammad, and others like her, who were not able to have stable marriages, who were mistreated by the men who were blessed to be in their company. Right. Even in the midst of that hell, they were the most feminine women I've ever known. She had the most soft voice. She never raised her voice. She never cursed a fool out. That's my group. We got enough of that. But they were such ladies. And to be able to do, that's one thing to do that, like they said with Jacqueline Kennedy. She was such a this, she was such a that. But Jacqueline Kennedy was wealthy. She married a wealthy man. She had servants. She was able to travel. If she wouldn't be bothered with her kids for a day, somebody could come and get her. We had none of that. Right. But we're equal or better than her. Where does that come from? But with Allah. And the way that we're going to get feminine and come back to ourselves, we have to trust in the Lord that made us. That he will get, like Christians say, he brought you to it, he'll take you through it. We have to understand that. So I've been blessed to be around some powerful women who had no men to support them, who had nothing but themselves and the belief in Allah. They didn't turn to lesbianism. Right. They didn't become haters. They're the most proponents of Black men that I've ever seen in my life. I'd have been like, shoot. Right. But they were like, the brothers out here, and they're going to do this. They had such faith in the possibility of a Black man. So that's what kept them going. Now there's no more faith. What we have now is like these efforts, this. Right. Because we have brought into the world, instead of what Allah gave us, what God gave to us. He gave us this. And if there's you, Allah said, I've made you a mate of like nature. The problem is we're picking the wrong men. Not that the men are no good. Stop picking fools. I raised my hand. I'm one of them. But the problem is you did not choose wisely. Right. You cannot follow somebody you do not respect. That's the bottom line. For women, you have to have respect. Yeah, and so, but before we go to that, I just want to do a station identification. You are tuning into New Africa Talks. This is the She Speaks Volumes Primetime edition, and tonight's conversation is Woman, the Womb of Mind, the re-education of the African American woman. And our guest tonight is Sister Sajda Bree, and we are streaming live on New Freedom Exchange as well as New Africa Intelligentsia, both on Facebook and on YouTube. And so I wanted to stop you before we went into that whole choice, right, for women, because that's like a whole, we could
we could absolutely like dive into that. And I do want to dive into that, right? Because we're talking about women, we're talking about re-educating ourselves. We talked about standards, right? And so let's talk a little bit about like our choices, right? Because at the end of the day, we're making choices, right? And we're making choices a lot of times based on some real funky stuff that ain't even what we should be looking at, really. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's where some of that is getting us in trouble. And so we have to be real with ourselves that that's our responsibility, right? That doesn't go on somebody else. It's not somebody else's fault that you made a choice in something that you knew was already what it was because it looked pretty.
Right. We have to understand that we need to heal ourselves first before we go into any relationship, which I didn't do because at my time, the therapy and things that I need weren't available until I was much, much older.
Right.
However, take responsibility.
Right.
Made a bad choice. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Don't just get to here. This is bad. You jump over here because that looks better, but it's still just as bad. And you go, no. Multiple partners don't help us. It doesn't. Because when we take a man into our life, we take in his spirit. If the spirit is not good, it's not good.
It's not good.
If tells you this is a bad decision. If people tell you who love you, this is a bad decision, and you do it anyway, that's on you.
Right.
So we have to learn first, heal ourselves. What's going on with you here? And understand if there's something wrong, you have to fix it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Back in the past, like I said, I forgive those women. They did the best that they could do.
Right.
They didn't have therapy. All they had was, Miss So-and-so down the street, mama and them. That's it. Yeah. But we, my generation and younger, have the chance, and Allah blessed us with therapists of our own kind that were helpful, that take us to a place of healing. And we have to continue along that path. And even when we find that man that's good to us, that's good for us, we have to continue along that path. Because we have generational scars of women who went through things and gave everything they had to somebody else. When Allah says, and do not extend yourself to the point where you're destitute. But because we didn't know any better. All we knew was my mother took everybody.
Yeah, I want you to stop there because that's an important point, right? Because we, when I look at the women, my friends, my relatives, and just sort of what we display, and it's not everybody, but what we display as women, sometimes we give so much. Like we give more than we even knew that we had, because we think that this is it, and if I don't have this, I have nothing, or what am I going to do without this? And most of the time, I'm sort of like painting this picture. It is in relation to a man, but it's important for you for us to stop at that point that you just made, and that Allah says don't do that, right? And then let's go back to what you said, even as like when you talked about the natural man. Like, well, if he's in his natural state, he's not even requiring that from you. So we have to really look at what is it that we are, what is it, back to that measuring stick, like, right, what is it that we're looking at as to how we should be, how we should behave, at what point is too much, when is that line being crossed, and then being honest with ourselves about the decisions that we make. Because we know, right? You get to that point where you're just like, okay, I've like stepped way beyond my bounds, but I want it so bad that I'm gonna do it anyway.
I understand that truly, But what we had
And trust me, when I talk, I'm talking because I've experienced it. And
yes.
I would never shame a sister because I'm like, sis, I get it.
Nothing to be ashamed of if you are not conscious of your
Right.
decision and you're not paying attention and you're in a mode of desperation and you're just like you're not going to listen to Allah,
Yeah.
His angels, the people that He sends to you to try to protect you from yourself. You're not listening. That's all it is. And don't beat yourself up. Just say, man, what did I do to get here? How do I get out? That's where I started from with my healing. I didn't say, what did he do? Though he did a lot. I looked at myself and said, because whatever I do is for me. I can't do anything about what somebody else does, but I can help myself.
Yeah.
I can help my daughter. I can move from point A to point B. And the one thing we have to look, going back to the feminine, a friend of mine, her sister, a young girl, was so wise, once told me, women, we don't have to do anything. Just sit and be yourself. Be glorious in your own. The men have to move. She said, look at the way we're made. The egg stays where it is. The sperm fights to get to you. Even in the way that we're built, the male, the penis, it goes out. It has to move into you. You have to receive it. So you can block it. That's the beauty of the feminine. The not necessarily sedentary, but you're still
Right.
going all over the place. Not necessary. I watch Steve Harvey a lot because I like his relationship shows. And you always find women, where am I going? I'm at the supermarket. I came back to church. I don't see nobody over there. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to be. Now, I'm not saying wait for him to come to your house like a delivered pizza, but be you. And in your feminine self, when you go outside, don't go out funky and raggedy. Go out looking good. Go out smelling good. Go out and move. And one thing a pioneer sister told me, she said, honey, don't move so fast. Go slow. Let them get a good look. You know? So we have to understand the way we do things, and that men are hunters.
Yeah.
Looking around there, and we have to allow the masculine, because we have to understand the power that we have. We have to allow the masculine. Don't help people like we have a lot of these brothers. Well, does provide always mean we gotta pay for you? That's somebody who's in a kindergarten class.
Right.
If you have a master's degree in the intellect, that's not what you're saying. You just let that brother, okay, alhamdulillah. You don't have to be mean to him. Just give him a little smile, alhamdulillah. But that ain't the one you show all your teeth to. That's not the one you bat your eyes at.
Right.
He has nothing to offer you. You want to talk to the man who wants to be a man, who sees a woman, who says, how can I set you up? Like that's his whole frame of thought. When you talk to him, he has a goal in life. He wants to develop something. One of my favorite movies, The Eyes of Watching God, Halle Berry, and the second husband that she married, they called him the mayor. They had moved to this place called Edenville, which is actually a real black town. And when they got there was a shacks and pigs and dirt on the floor. And he said, how could y'all just sit in this? And before you knew it, they had street lights. They had gravel on the street. They had cars. They had a store. They had a church. And that's the kind of man you look at and be like, okay, he's talking about something. He's not just talking, he's really doing something. And that's potential. There's a wonderful talk on YouTube called Why Can't a Successful Black Woman Find a Man? And Steve Harvey, Hill Harper, Sherry Shepard, and I forgot the other woman's name, and this other guy who needs to remain nameless. In the discussion, they were talking about potential.
Okay.
We don't know what that is, a lot of us, because we've never seen it. But potential looks like a man that is doing something and you are assisting in what he's doing. Not if somebody's coming to you saying, well, how are you going to help me? That should be ping, ping, ping.
Red flag.
You're not in the masculine role. So don't ask for anything from the feminine. Try to learn what you're supposed to do. Then you do that. A woman All you have to do is be, like I said, be beautiful. Men have a type. Understand that. We need to understand that and seriously understand it. Stop trying to make somebody like you who likes somebody else. It's just ridiculous. If he's not interested in you, I never cared about that. If you didn't like me, that's fine. Just don't try to make me somebody that you do like. Go get her.
Right.
But if you like me, then you like me, who I am, all I'm about. Don't deal with men who want you to be something else because they're afraid to go for the woman that they really want. That's ridiculous. Don't try to force yourself on somebody. Don't come in the room and you want him to look at you and he's looking at somebody else and you jumping up and down doing jumping jacks. He doesn't want you. And there was a judge, what's her name? Lynn Toller said once,
I like that.
Have a man have to tell you twice if they don't want you. Leave it alone. Right. But that's masculine of us. That's the masculine part of the black woman, that we're trying to force it and fix it and roll it. And if a man said he likes somebody with blue eyes and blonde hair, but she got to be a sister, she wanted to be built, that's all right. She's still black. You have to, you don't like me. Find somebody that likes you. Because that brother said, I want somebody that look like Thelma from Good Times. I want somebody who looks like Lupita Nyong'o. Everybody has a type. If you're not that type, it's okay. Go where let the brother come to you that you're his type. Because see, my therapist told me, you want the man who's going to spend that last $150 in his pocket on you. Because if he's not into you, he's going to keep it for the one that he wants. And you'll never get it out of his hand. You want it to flow easy. Like they say, easy on the eyes. Yeah. You want somebody who looks at you and it was like a movie. What's that movie? Just Right with Queen Latifah and Common. Yeah. And they're in the room when they first meet at his house. And her cousin comes in. What was the child's name? I forgot her name. Anyway, Paula Patton. Now he's talking to Queen Latifah. They're having a conversation. He's liking the conversation. But when Paula comes by, homeboy's eyes shoot out of his head, and he's just like, what? She took his breath away. That's what you want. You don't want to be the one that he's like, well, I guess you're left. So come on.
Right. I guess you'll do.
Bricks. You don't want that. You want the man who's going to put you on a pedestal and do for you. Because that's when you're going to have a real relationship. That's the kind of relationship that the majority of the time, you don't have him cheating because he got what he wanted. Now, when he doesn't get what he wants, he's always going to be looking over his shoulder. That's just the nature of men. But don't force yourself into a mold. Oh, I got to look like this to get. No, there's somebody that likes this person, but somebody that likes you. So you want the person that's into you. That's feminine. And like I said, you don't have to do anything. Just whatever you really like as a woman, you like dresses, you want to wear makeup, you wear this, do it. Because if you meet a man who hates makeup, who doesn't like you to fix your nails and stuff, you're going to be miserable.
Absolutely.
Be you. That's feminine. It's all the things that people don't want you to know about. They don't want you to talk about. They don't want you to do. And that's how you move a man. You can't move a man if you don't have his ear. You got to have his ear, because pillow talk is something else. You can change who he is. You can change all that into who he can become. Look for the person that you're inspired by. Potential is not, well, he could possibly be an accountant. Potential is, wow, there's a brother that's on now. His name is King. I forgot his name. He was on Roland Martin. He built his own school. 21-year-old man, young black in Georgia. He first took kids from the foster system and brought them into his house because he said they weren't doing anything in the state. They built a school. He brought a school bus. This brother is young. That's potential. Right. What is he doing? Not somebody that comes to you, he's 40 and over, and he's talking about, I always wanted to rap. Right. Well, the last 25 years, have you put out a record? Right. That's what women need to do, because we're the ones left with the hell if we get the wrong person. He can always get up and skip out of town. That's what we have to think in terms of that, because we are really the builders of the family. We set the tone. Whatever we want in the house. Men, who's it? Chris Rock, I think, said, all I want is a room and a TV with a refrigerator in it. Most men, I'm not talking about the ones who now they want to be all fancy with you and, oh, I want pink and I was like that. No, regular men, normal men. They don't want to get involved in that. They don't even want to get involved in your wedding. They'll be like, honey, do what you do. I'll give you the money. That's what I like. They don't want to be in where you are. I don't want a man, like a lot of the big thing now is to have men do children's hair. And I mean, I think that's sweet that the young brothers learn how to do their daughter's hair and whatever to help the mama out. But for me, I do my own child hair. I need you to go to work. I don't need you to do none of that. Oh, he can make me dinner. I can cook like nobody's business. I don't need you to do that for me. Go to work. Do what you're here to do. I'm here to support you in that way. I have my dreams. You have your dreams. Let's work this out. But you will have that if you get the one that's looking for you and respects women. Like I said, if he doesn't like his mother, he's not going to like you.
Right.
That's the reality. If your family is hit this way and his family's crazy, leave it alone. It's not going to change because you want it to change. It's not going to be different. This is the reality.
Yeah.
And until we understand that the feminine is a molder, but we don't break things. We just say, oh, honey, maybe you can do this. Maybe. And now they're selling this on the internet as manipulation. That's the part. Because the feminine is that powerful. You can manipulate a man who's completely into you. And you get somebody who you don't really care for, but he's so into you, he'll do anything. You can manipulate him. That's the power of the feminine. That's the wrong way. What you're here to do is take the men who are powerful and make them more powerful.
Yeah, and that makes me think about there's this I don't even know what to call it, but I guess it's I was gonna say quote, but it's not. I guess not really. It might be a quote where it says, a woman is with her husband. So let's just use Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. I think that's how it was told to me, right? So Michelle and Obama and Barack Obama together, and Michelle sees an old boyfriend, and Obama says, aren't you glad that you didn't get with him and you got me? And it's like, well, if I had got with him, he would have been president. Right. And that speaks to like who we are, what we have inside. I'm taking a class with Iman Rashad, and one of the classes we talked about like Allah giving us, men and women, right, giving us the resources that we have within ourselves to navigate through this world, right? So when I think about women, I think about, well, we have some things inside of us that are uniquely to women, right? So we talk about being feminine, and for a lot of us, we've gotten of course with what that is because we don't know, what is inside of us. That's really the point I'm making here, is that we have things in us that if we don't tap into it or we don't know that it is even there, then we're sort of bumping up against these walls and roadblocks because we haven't even discovered what we have, who we are. Yeah. And so, and a lot of times we want to be able to blame a man for where we're at. And it's like, well, no, sis, you got to backtrack that just a little bit and look at you, right? Because it starts with you. You are you within your being, and that has nothing to do with a man. So we've got to get comfortable with checking ourselves as to where we are. And not be afraid to look at it, because sometimes it's ugly.
Yes. But that's why therapy is such a wonderful thing, because you have somebody there who's objective, who looks at you and says, come on now, you didn't know that you were walking into this room full of dynamite. And you can lie to yourself, but when that person can see it and say, remember when you told me blah, blah, blah? That was you walking into that room. Remember when you said you were going to do this and you did that? That was you. And just take the responsibility. Like I said, if you have been in a relationship and it's terrible, don't excuse the other person for their horrible behavior, and don't beat yourself up. Just say, why did I stay in this nonsense? Like, this is crazy. Why did I do something this crazy? And that's what therapy is for. It's for unpeel your layers and come out and say, you know what? This was crazy. Why did I do that? I'm going to be doing this from now on. But one of the things you have to realize is what we're doing when we don't do what Allah gave us. I said, a merciful benefactor. We're fighting Allah. We're not fighting anybody else.
Yeah.
I had a conversation years ago with this guy who told me he was an atheist, agnostic, something like that. And he told me he didn't believe in God because he was angry that he gives us all his desires and he tells us not to do it. And then he gives us all this thing, and he's trapping us and all that. I said, what difference does that make if Allah is the master of the board? You know, it reminds me of this show I used to watch a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but NCIS Los Angeles with LL Cool J on there. Okay. And they have a boss named Hetty. And so every so often she shakes up the team to make sure that they're doing at their best. So one time the detective and woman got together, and they were just starting to know each other, and she sent her to Afghanistan. And the guy was like, you know, I'm just getting ready to know her. I really like her. What's going on? So when he walked off, the other guy comes in. He said, Hetty, you really like moving all the pieces around on the chessboard. She said, I don't move the pieces. I move the board. When I thought of that, I thought about Allah. Allah moves the board. He is in charge. So whether you like it or not, I don't want to do this part. I want to. In the end of the day, for God's sake, there's a day of judgment that you have to answer for. Right. So stop fighting Allah, because it's much easier when you submit. I mean, I know that's a taboo word with a lot of women.
Oh yeah, people lose it.
Because you understand how to submit to Allah. Once you submit to Allah, submitting to a man doesn't mean that he says, get Coming to America, bark. Right. That's not what that means. Like, what kind of ridiculousness is that? Submitting to Allah, it means, okay, Allah, I've been fighting this way, I've been fighting that way. I know you're the master of this. You made me. So you know what I need to do. You know what I need. Okay. What do I need to do? And Allah will tell you. Anybody who's ever submitted to Allah and asked, like Allah said, and requested me, but also listen to me when I tell you something. Yeah. I know that I hear you. All the supplications that you've given. But when I tell you to do something, listen. Yeah. This is where that comes. It's like, if you don't listen, you're fighting Allah. Allah tells you, and I'm a witness, I bear witness. He will tell you direct. If you say, Allah, I don't understand any kind of subtlety. I don't hit me over the head with a wrench. Yeah. He will hit you head with a wrench. And you will get it. So it's not a mystery. And people you cannot be selective in religion. It's not a la carte. You can't, I'll take some of this mercy, but I still want to fornicate. And I'll have this, but I'm going to steal. That's not how it works. Yeah. Allah said, like I said, he rules the board. You don't have a choice. Do as much as you can does not mean, I have a weakness for alcohol, so I'm going to drink until I don't have the weakness. That's not how that works. Right. You have to be fervently trying and struggling and saying, Allah, help me. I just feel like I can't make it no more. Like that song, Shackles, take the shackles off my feet. Like, I want to praise you, not this person. And the older you get, the more you understand that people don't matter. That people are going to do, like, all of us are not going to make it. Everybody listening to this podcast is not going to be like, you know what, that makes sense. Some people are going to do what they're going to do. Right. But it reminds me of like a situation I had when I was one of my last teaching jobs. There was this little boy, and we were practicing, rehearsing for the graduation, 8th grade graduation. And he got into an argument with a girl who was in the audience. He was on the stage. He had the mic. He told her, blip, blip, blip. And I told him right then and there, you're out. You can't be there because I cannot have you representing, and you're going to speak to a woman like that. Well, she said to me, I said, I don't care. You have the mic. Have the power. You're up here. And he was so angry. He left, and his mother came in. She told me, thank you so much for doing that for my son, because when he was growing up, I was on drugs, and I didn't help him. So he doesn't really have respect for me, but he respects you. And so he'll listen to what you have to say. So it's like, we have to understand that there's a time, and I told myself, what I want you to learn from this is that you can't always just say sorry. Yeah. You never get another chance. Yes, right. And you learn that now while you're young. So when you get older, you know what? Is it worth me doing this? Should I do something that's dumb? And I pray Allah he understood the message I gave him. But we have to understand that. And that as adults, like I said, as women, we're in charge of a lot more than we think. Yeah. We are the ones who create these children. I was listening to Jada Pinkett and Will Smith talk one day. And he said something very, very poignant. He told her, my relationship with my children is in you. You're the first person who introduces the father to the child. They don't know nothing. They know mama. Mama is everything. Mm-hmm. He said, without the woman, there is no fatherhood. You give the permission because what you say goes first. Mama is everything when you're little. You hurt your leg. Even now when you're sick and you're an adult, what do you cry for? Mama.
That's right.
Yeah, even if she can't do anything, you can have one arm. Mama come and sit by you and just rub your other arm. And you're like, oh Lord, thank you for, because Allah gives you something. Like I said, I lost my mother 2 years ago. Allah gives you something in your mama, if you had a good one, that you cannot get anywhere else. There is no one on this earth who will be as good to you if you have a good mother. No one is going to love you like that. I don't care if it's your sibling, your husband, no one, because he only did that to her. So you understand what a gift that is. And that's the feminine.
Yeah.
That you would give up your whole body. She could die each time you get pregnant, you could die. But you gave up your body. My mother had 7 children. So about 10 years she was pregnant.
Right.
You gave up your whole body for another human being to come here. And then you nursed us for 2 years. And then that's why Allah said, you better not talk back to your mother. You better not say disparaging words against your mother. Because she didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
We have to understand the feminine, the power of that. And we keep thinking of power in terms of masculinity. That's the problem. Power is not always who you can fight, who you can beat up. There's a power of, like with ancient Egypt. They didn't have a military. They weren't known to have a navy. They had power over the mind.
Yeah.
That's what the woman has. That's what your mama tells you. You always think, oh, I shouldn't do that. Mom be so ashamed of me. You think that way because she'll tell you, you shouldn't have been doing that. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
That's a feminine thing. Men are naturally more untamed because Allah sends them out in the world. And they can get jobs in places that we can't. They can work somewhere with no shirt on. They can, they have the physical strength to do certain things. So he sends them over here. We're not involved in that. So naturally, the woman is supposed to be more civilized. There's a movie that I love, musical 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. She comes in a house full of boys, I think 7 or 8 boys. Yeah, 7 boys. And they're living like hogs. They got the chickens in the house. The house is dirty. The food's all over the place. They're half dirty. And she comes in and teaches them how to be civilized, how to treat women, because they didn't have their mother or their father. They were orphans, basically. The big brother. That's the power of the feminine. And that's what that movie was about. The power of the feminine. We look at people like Hillary Clinton. She doesn't want to be a woman. That's what lost her that election. Had she gone and dug into her feminine self, I don't care what anybody tries to say or bring up politics, why did so many men dislike her? Because she wasn't feminine. She tried to go toe to toe, face to face, chest to chest with a man. Wrong move. They should tell her, put her in the place. You will not be doing that here.
Yeah.
She was
and
so
I'm
angry.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what you said when you told the story about the young man and the school and the whole, and when you were telling that story, what you kind of alluded to is that like you talked about our responsibility, right, as women. And one of the pieces in the title of this show says it says women womb of mind, right? And I wanted to, as we get ready to close up the show, I just wanted to make sure that we touched on the point of the influence we have, right, over the minds. And when I say minds, I'm really talking about like the mind of the people, right? Because there's this feminine energy, whether it's from your mother, whether it's from just a elder in the community, but there's this feminine energy that has this responsibility that you talked about it with the husband, right? Like you can manipulate, not in a negative sense, but you can manipulate what happens in the mind, in that community mind around you. And so I wanted to just have a brief discussion as we get ready to close up about the type of influence we can have, and that our children are watching us and they're looking for that leadership from us that sometimes we just drop the ball on.
Well, one of the things is that like I said, everything I believe has to come from example. Allah shows us the nature and then we copy. Same thing has to happen in the household with those of us who are single parents like myself. Don't be okay with being a single mother. It's abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I said, I thank Allah for my brothers that come through for me whenever I need them. I don't have to ask but once, and sometimes they'll ask me. They're there for my daughter. She gets from them what she needs in that sense. But I need something too.
Right.
They cannot give me that. So
Right.
I still need a man for that part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And your children will remind you. Your children will tell you. You know. So what you're just doing, if you do not have a spouse, the number one thing to do, stay as you are. Keep your morals high. Don't go for this stuff that we're doing now where you're a Muslim one day, then the next day you're sleeping with some man and another. Don't do that because you destroy the religion for your spirit and for your children. They're watching. And don't say, I'm grown. Grown does not mean that you get to do stuff that Allah said people can't do. That ain't grown. Grown means you take responsibilities for your actions and you try as hard as you can to do what Allah said. If you want a certain kind of household, you keep that household. Your children will reflect it. They will reflect that. My daughter does not like a lot of loud craziness. She's a very feminine girl, like, you know, likes the little frilly things, and she's always been like that. She didn't have brothers or sisters or anything, so that could be a reason too. But that's her, and I allow her that. Even though, like I said, I was a tomboy. I didn't try to put that on her and say, you're not free enough. You need to play with some rocks and trucks too. Well, that's not what she wants to do. Right. She wants to play with dolls. She wants to put on makeup. She wants to be pretty. That's who she is. Allow your children to be who they are. But keep your moral standards high. That's a really big thing we have to do as women, because you want to attract the man that's looking for that. I don't want to attract a man who thinks he's going to come, okay, have a nightcap. First of all, I don't drink. Second of all, what is this? You know, I want to attract a man who's like, he's a Muslim. You know, Ramadan to me is exciting. That's my favorite time of the year. I want him to be excited too. If you're not excited about Ramadan, don't talk to me. Talk to somebody else. You know, like have that as your passion and his passion, and you come together. Yeah. Attract, I mean, like I said, make your list. But as you get older, your list should be more mature. You know, when I was younger, I said, okay, 6'5". Well, I still can't. That's the perfection on the stick. But I mean, that was like the top of this. The top of my list now says kindness. Yes. Integrity. Enlightenment. Like, I like men who are intelligent and very smart. That's such a turn on. But I'm more interested in a man who's enlightened, who can get what he gets from learning and know that he's humble because Allah is God, and he can take from that information and take stuff out that other people can't see. That to me is fascinating. That's fascinating to me. Somebody who can be humble enough to talk to somebody who just got out of prison, and also somebody who is a scholar. Right. Like a man who's versatile. You know, that kind of a thing. Renaissance man type of thing. The older you get, and also you have a look. Everybody has, women, we have looks, but we're not as stringent about that as men are. We're more, you know, what can you feel in my head? What can I hear in your thing? So we will be attracted to men sexually that we don't necessarily look at their face and be like, oh, he's fine. He can be all right. But he can have the sexuality is the masculine energy. That's what that is. There are men who can walk in a room and just shut it down. Doesn't have to argue, doesn't have to fight, he can control other men. That's powerful. I've seen that. And that's like, oh my God. He can just walk in and control other men to listen to him and follow what he's saying. That's attractive. So the older you get, the more mature your mind gets, the more you need somebody who's on your level. You know, education to me is very important. So we should be making these lists, but also keeping at the same time, this is the type of household I need. I need you to respect women, period. I need you to have, like, men who always have an extra chick on the side. That to me is reeks of immaturity. That you don't want anybody to really know you, so you got a woman over here, a woman over there. Don't accept that. Yeah. if you're not satisfied here, then don't get involved. Go over there. You know, a lot of people try to say, well, polygyny is to help men who are used to having a lot of women. Where did I put that in argument?
Where you see that at? Yeah.
I would say no. You're just immature and childlike. And you want another woman the majority of the times, unfortunately, because you want to, you know, like I said, be mysterious or whatever. You're not doing it properly. If you did it properly, some people would accept that. It's not my bag, but some people will accept that. Yeah. And as far as, like I said, what you allow in the house is how the house is going to be. Because the man's not in the house most of the time. Women set the tone. You're not going to have liquor in here, and you don't even have to say it. They just know. Don't speak to her like that, or don't do it like that. And women should be able to also command men in the sense of you're always being treated like a lady. I've never been mistreated in that sense, ever. Like I said, everybody except for one person, but I'm talking about like in general for Black men and Latino men. Always respect. Carry yourself with a certain amount of respect. They will respect you. And that's where I said for the one last thing about you cannot come out of yourself as a Muslim woman and dress some kind of way that's completely different and expect somebody to treat you like a Muslim woman. That's not how it works. If you want to wear pants and bathing suits and all stuff, you can do whatever you want. This is a free country. Allah gave us freedom. But understand that whatever you do, there's a consequence to it.
Something comes with that, yeah.
You're not going to walk out here and say, well, I'm a Muslim too. You don't respect me as a Muslim. Like that joke by Dave Chappelle. Very, very poignant. When he said, you know, I went to this woman, she's half dressed, and I'm talking, she said, just because I'm dressed like this doesn't mean you can treat me like I'm a whore. He said, that's right. True. He said, but that'd be like me dressing like a cop, and people running to me for help, and I tell them, oh, I'm not a cop just because I'm wearing this uniform.
Wow.
He said, well, but you're wearing a hose uniform. That's just reality. And we need to stop acting like little kids, and we don't understand that. You know that you got a nice behind or a nice waistline and this and that, and you know what the men do when they look at it. Don't act like you have no control. That's a certain amount of control. But what it does is instead of keeping the men up, is we're bringing our men down. Like we walk around with everything off. I feel bad for the brothers who are trying to hold and maintain in the summertime. I really do. Because it's like, what the world? Everybody's naked. It's not even what it was for. Everybody is naked. So he's gonna fall on the floor trying to keep his eyes down.
Right.
For the men, what they're supposed to do, but that makes it difficult because, like I said, Allah said, "No way is the man like the female." We don't get turned on. I can see a man with no shirt on, and be like, "Oh, he's cute," but I can keep doing my job. It's not going to phase me one way or the other. Yeah. But a man cannot see a half-dressed woman every day and focus on work. So if we want our men to focus, we have to focus. And those of us who are serious about this work, who are serious about these families, you can, like I said, you cannot force, and you shouldn't want a man who has to be forced to be a good man. They're not anyway. But the ones who are serious, the ones who are really trying, we should be doing all that we can, even to hook people up, to find things, to find people, you know, that kind of thing. You know, there was a time I did this huge thing to bring Black people together, and the men didn't show up, and I was just so disappointed. But Allah is basically telling me that's not what your job is. If they don't want what they're supposed to have or do what they're supposed to do as far as Muslim men, they don't deserve the women. But know that Allah will not leave us out here alone. And I don't advocate interracial or whatever, but I do say that Allah said the earth is spacious. And he's not going to leave those of us women who are striving to be upright, who are raising our children alone with nobody. That's not the way Allah works it. He will find us aid. He will give us what we need. We have to have faith, and we have to do whatever it is that you ask Allah for. He told you to do it. If he told you to eat broccoli every day, eat that broccoli. You know, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Everybody's individual. Allah has enough power and enough wisdom to give us all what we need. But we have to do that which he tells us to do to get what we want. So I'm here for the heteronormative because we're getting out of pocket. Some women, Black women, Muslim women I've heard talk about the non-patriarchal family. I don't know what that means. That means a family without a father.
How do you do that?
How's that working?
How you doing that?
What is
Yeah.
this thing we're talking about? The non-heteronormative. So you want us to be gay? We're
Right.
Muslims. Like that's not an option for us.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever you're doing, that is your vice. If it's against what Allah teaches, whatever it is you're doing, if it's fornication, if it's adultery, if it's taking drugs, taking alcohol, homosexuality, sodomy, whatever it is, that's outside of the parameters of what Allah said we could do. So if you're doing that, you cannot justify it and say, well, I'm a gay Muslim. I'm a so-and-so. No. You're either a Muslim or you're doing, not to say we all have vices, so you can still be a Muslim and have a vice. But if you're promoting that as a way of life that Allah did never give you permission to promote, that's wrong. It's a sin. We have to admit, even as I said, Allah said, tell the truth against your own
against yourself. That's right.
If somebody asks me tomorrow, did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah, it's still wrong.
It's wrong.
I don't care what I did. That's what we have to realize. It's not that no one, if you don't do anything wrong, I don't know who you are. But take responsibility and say, I don't care if I did this. It was wrong when I did it. It's still wrong. And like I said, my life now is about Allah, give me the paradise. Let me see my mama again. Let me see my grandma and them. That's what I want. I'm not thinking about sister so-and-so, brother such and such. I'm going to live my life the best I can and try to do the best for the future and keep on spreading what, like you said, the examples. Because from what you were saying is that what's needed are these types of podcasts. All this type of, I see a lot of stuff online that's just like, is this Islam or is this your opinion?
Right.
Like, you don't have an opinion. And so many Muslims have a hard time with what Allah says. When he has decreed something and the prophet and given it to him, we cannot argue with it. That means I hear and I obey. You don't get to choose how much of it are you going to do and how little can I do and still be a Muslim. That's not a goal. That's foolishness. And we have to start doing that as Muslims. If we want to repair, if we want to be better, if we want to do better. Women, like I said, follow the feminine. What is the feminine? The feminine is the pretty. The feminine is the soft. All stuff you do, like I said, self-care. That's feminine. Men don't say stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we stop encouraging men to behave like women.
Yeah.
Really wrong with that. That you want a man, one more thing. The sister, the show I was talking about with Sherry Shepherd, and I'm talking about can a black woman find somebody? And she said, I want a man that's going to take my weave out. And Steve Harvey said, if he's just taking out your weave, he ain't your man.
Right.
Why do you want a man to do stuff that you and your girlfriends do?
Sure.
We want the opposite. My whole point, if you're going to do that, be a homosexual. Because we're never going to be the same. I don't want a man who behaves like a woman. Yeah. And I'm sure a man doesn't want a woman who behaves like a man. You're not going to get along doing that. And I have no problem doing those things that are traditionally female. But too many of us do. And that's destroying us because it's too much pressure to try to do a man's work. I never want to be one. And it's too much pressure to expect, that's a man is not going to be okay with that. Yeah. Hanging out with LGBTQ. A normal man is not okay with that. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's just a toxic masculinity. No, he's a man. Right. If he's okay with that, he's on that team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that note, I just want to thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. Like I said in the beginning, this is a much needed conversation. We don't always sit down and have these real talks about where we are as women, where we should be, doing the realignment and the readjustment, really looking at ourselves in relation to where we could be, and then being honest with where we're at and being honest with the example that we're setting for the women that are coming behind us. So again, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. For those who are tuning in, again, this is actually New Africa Talks in collaboration with She Speaks Volumes. Tonight's guest was Sister Saja Sabri, and we were talking about women, the womb of mind, the re-education of the African American woman. And before we go, I just want to do a few announcements. So I'm going to bring up some of my announcements here, things that we have coming up. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So tomorrow on New Freedom Exchange, we have our community conversations with Imam Rashad. And the topic is Ramadan, the importance of self. So that's tomorrow, March 28th at 7 p.m. And that's with the New Freedom Exchange host, as well as we have on that show Imam Rashad who hosts that with us as well. We have a pop-up, a pre-Ramadan pop-up that is happening. It's actually an indoor-outdoor event that is happening on April the 4th from 2 to 5 p.m., hosted by Imam Yassin Shabazz and Imam Councilman Mustafa Brent. That is going to be in Union, New Jersey, so look out for that. Sisters in Service has a child abuse and prevention workshop coming out on Wednesday, April the 7th at 6:30 p.m. So make sure you go register for that. The Zoom information is on the flyer. And I think that's it for my announcements. I do want those who are local to Newark, I don't have a flyer for it, but tomorrow the Unified E-Committee in Newark is having a fundraiser at Applebee's, the Applebee's Grab and Go Breakfast tomorrow from 8 to 10. It's the Applebee's on Bergen Street and Springfield Avenue. So if you are in the area between 8 and 10, you can come by and purchase a breakfast. The funds go towards the festivities for the Eid. We usually are giving toys out to the children, and it will be a grab and go breakfast. So if you're in the area, make sure you join us for that. And I think that's there's another flyer. Hold on, let me grab it. I'm not sure which flyer it is, so let's see if I pull out the right flyer. Oh no, that's not the flyer. Oh, I see it here. Okay. Somebody else's. Okay, there we go. All right, and so we have another show coming up on March the 30th. We are going to have the video premiere of Sister Naima's song "Born to Be a Fighter." That's going to be on March 30th at 8 p.m. I think that's Tuesday. I think that's Tuesday. We'll have that premiering on New Freedom Exchange, so make sure you come back and check us out for that one as well. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this conversation tonight. It was definitely a very helpful conversation and a reminder for us all to, as women, to tap into that feminine side of us and really take responsibility for who we are as women. And be the influence that we can be. And one last announcement I do want to make, and I don't have the flyer for this one as well, but tomorrow also is the Unified Talim that is being hosted by Masjid Ali Man in Jersey City. It's going to be online, another Zoom, so you can find that on the New Freedom Exchange page. We'll post it up so you can have access to that. It's the Universal Prayer Day. That's going to happen tomorrow at 1 p.m. So look for that flyer to come out on the New Freedom Exchange Facebook page. With that said, again, Sister Sasha, thank you so much. Thank you to the Sabri brothers for even asking me to host this. I enjoyed myself in this conversation with you. And with that said, we are out. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Can't comprehend why would I so young but my vision hurts me. I try to brush it to the side, but it's hard to be numb. We're dying for love. We're dying for love. We're dying for love. We're dying for love. For My mom tells me to have faith, but I can't erase the struggles our people face. Oh, poverty, innocent kids dying, mothers are trying to make a difference. Why do we do the things we do? I'm trying to show you it's complicated, complicated. This complicated perfection. Sticks and stones.